Mayor Donna Deegan took office July 1st, 100 days ago today. A UNF public opinion research poll done a few weeks ago indicates she enjoys a 47% approval rating with a 14% disapproval rating. 36% people polled say they're not sure yet, and 4% refuse to answer. Joining me on the morning show for his take on the mayor's performance is government law attorney and the former chief of staff for the city of Jacksonville, Chris Hand. Good morning, Chris. Good to have you here.
Good morning, Bruce. Great to be here.
So let's start with an overall assessment in your mind of the mayor's performance.
In the city of Jacksonville is the fact that they have to present a budget so quickly. So Mayor Deegan took office on July 1st. Barely 2 weeks later, on July 17th, she had to submit a more than $1.7 billion proposed budget to the Jacksonville City Council. That consumes much of the first 100 days. And so as what you've seen is the mayor and her team try to do some other things beyond that as well. Jen spoke earlier about the community conversation she's having tonight at Westside High School. Have had those around the community trying to, I think, take advantage of one of the attributes of the strong mayor system, the ability to get around the community, connect people directly to City Hall.
So I think her first real challenge has surfaced when City Council gave her some pushback when she tried to establish a position for DEI with Parvez Ahmed at the helm, and they refused to fund it. She also got some pushback for her director of neighborhoods and general counsel positions.
Correct, and that's, again, not necessarily unusual. First of all, the DEI position that council did not fund in this budget. Remember, under our charter, the ultimate authority for adopting a city budget belongs to City Council. The mayor's just making a proposal, so it's not unusual that the council would make changes to a city budget. This happened to be a high-profile position, so it did attract some attention. And also her appointees to be director of neighborhoods and her initial appointee to be the general counsel of the city of Jacksonville ultimately withdrew when it appeared they did not have sufficient support on City Council. That'll be something to track going forward. What is the relationship between the mayor and the City Council? A former mayor used to say, you can't do anything without 10 votes. Managing that relationship with City Council is crucially important for any mayor, because without a successful relationship, it's going to be hard to move legislative initiatives forward.
But you can't really say that she had a honeymoon period, which some politicians do enjoy. Safe to say the biggest challenge and ongoing challenge is going to be a buy-in from the city and the people of this community on stadium renovations?
Unquestionably, that is going to be a defining issue for not just the first year of the Deegan administration, but the entire Deegan administration. The Jaguars' request for $1 billion in funding to renovate what is now Everbank Field. We're going to be talking about that for many months to come, and it's an issue that not only affects the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but also significantly the city budget. That type of investment has a major impact year in, year out in the city budget. It has the ability to affect a variety of other priorities, including some of the mayor's infrastructure priorities that she talked about in the campaign. So I think the community is going to be paying very close attention to that. Public opinion has been somewhat divided on that subject. We'll have to see where it goes over the next few months.
When you and I chatted, I said, you know, safe to say that crime has been an ongoing problem. And you said, no, it's been a chronic problem here, and one that the city can't seem to reverse. The mayor and council agreed on JSO's budget request, and that said, she subscribes to the theory that you can't just arrest your way out of crime. There have to be other problems in place. Do you think that she and the sheriff are on the same page?
Well, it's long been said that, you know, an effective anti-crime program requires sort of three elements. One is enforcement, which is what the sheriff and the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office do, and the others are prevention and intervention. And that is traditionally, Bruce, where Jacksonville mayors have gotten involved on the prevention and intervention side. Mayor Payton, perhaps most famously for the Jacksonville Journey, which was about 15 years ago. Mayor Deegan has talked about bringing that kind of Jacksonville Journey-like approach back to make sure that the entire community is kind of addressing these crime issues, particularly on the prevention and intervention front. The sheriff's made it very clear that he views enforcement as his domain, and some of these other issues are maybe more in the domain of others at City Hall. We'll have to, again, continue to watch to see if those two approaches complement each other over the next few months.
So while we're talking about crime, let me ask you about something that happened last Thursday. The mayor, just back from London, where she was talking about the Jaguars and trying to stir up new business interests. There was an incident that happened, and it involved a now viral video. It involved a JSO arrest where the victim's family said that JSO was a bit overzealous in its approach to what happened. And the mayor was asked about that as she was walking out of the meeting and refused to answer any questions. Surprise you?
Well, Yes, in the sense that this has been a mayor who's generally been accessible to the media. Of course, she's a former member of the media herself. She's doing these community conversations all around town. What we don't know is maybe why she didn't answer questions. You know, I think given that track record of being accessible to the media, this is something to track the big picture. Does this represent any kind of change in her overall approach? But generally, she's been accessible to the media and to the citizenry as well.
But it did raise some questions. Would it perhaps have been better to say, look, there's an investigation going on. I'm going to wait for the outcome of that investigation rather than just ignoring the questions?
I think it's always better to respond and put in some context while you are either answering or not answering, rather than leave it up to people's imaginations or speculation as to maybe why you're not answering the question. It could well be because of the nature of the investigation or for legal reasons she's not able to answer at this time. Typically better to put that in context than just kind of allow others to guess the reason.
All right, let's look toward the future. Biggest challenges for Mayor Deegan.
Well, the first 100 days get a lot of attention in any administration, but it's really the next 100 days, Bruce, that matter the most. Now that the administration's done with the budget, this is the opportunity to be able to make clear what the administration's about. What is its mission? What are its key priorities? Kind of help make sure that its brand and messaging are well known throughout the community. The mayor articulated a number of priorities in the campaign in her inaugural address, whether that's infrastructure or resilience. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, the Jaguar Stadium discussions. So this next 100 days past the budget is really a chance for the mayor and her team to make sure the community knows what this administration is going to be about.
Time to define, refine, and get down to business.
Exactly right.
Chris Hand, always a pleasure.
Thank
Good to
you,
have here.
Bruce.
Thank you so much. Jen.